Welcome back, 7th graders. We are on part 2 of lesson 15.4. We are moving into example 4, which also then uses example 2 here, okay? So what we need to do is it says in example 2, what is the probability of rolling a number greater than 4 and flipping tails, okay? So we got to go and look then at the probability. Remember, our probability is the favorable outcomes out of the total of possible outcomes. So I'm going to go back to example 2. In example 2, we talked about that there is a total of 12 possible outcomes. So when I go back to this one, my 12 possible outcomes are going to be on the bottom because that's my possible, and I want to figure out what's my favorable. So I'm going to go ahead and look at what anything that is greater than 4 and has a tails. Okay. Anything that's greater than 4, well, 5 and 6 are greater than 4, and I only want tails. So it looks to be that I could have tails and 5 or tails and 6. So that is 2 different options. So I would have a 2 out of 12. So my probability, again, I want to simplify it, would be 1/6. The probability is 1/6 of rolling a number that is greater than 4 and flipping tails. Okay. Number 5, you flip 3 nickels. What is the probability of flipping 2 heads and 1 tails? So this one actually I think would be almost best to draw a tree diagram, okay? So I go ahead and say I flip one nickel. When you flip a nickel, you've got a heads or a tails. So there's 2 options here, heads or tails, okay? Then I'm going to move on to the next one. So maybe I get a heads first. Then again, the probability could be that I have a heads or I have a tail. Maybe I got a tails first. Then I could have a heads or a tail. Okay. And your last one then is you could have a heads again. So you could get 3 heads in a row. You could have head, head, tail. You could have head, tail, head, head, tail, tail. So number order is important in probability and how the order goes into play because that is the amount of possible outcomes you could have then. Heads and tails, heads and tails. So this shows me that I've flipped 3 coins because I got a heads and tail here, another option for either heads or tails afterwards, and another one after here. So it says you flip 3 nickels. What is the probability of flipping 2 heads and 1 tails? Well, when we find our probability again, we want to put the possible outcomes at the bottom. So the bottom part of my tree diagram down here will show me the possible outcomes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have a possible, that seems weird. Possibility of 8. Why did it become 8? Because if you do like 3 nickels, okay, you have 3 of them. Each one has a possibility of 2. Oh, but they're each independent. Okay. Just making sure I got this right, guys. Okay. So the next part I want to do is I want to figure out how many options I have where I can get flipping 2 heads and 1 tail. And it doesn't tell me that it has to be like 2 heads first and then tail. It just needs to have 2 heads and 1 tail. So let's look at our options. Well, this is tail, tail, tail. This is, oops, I forgot heads here. Sorry, guys. Tail, tail, heads. Again, we want 2 heads and 1 tail. Tail, head, tail. Nope, but this one works. Head, head, tail. Head, tail, tail. Nope. Head, tail, head. Yeah, that one works. Head, head, tail. Yeah, that one works because I want 2 heads and 1 tail. And then the last one's just heads, heads, heads. So there's 3 possible options where you get 2 heads and 1 tail. So I'm going to have 3 out of 8. Okay, and that's going to be my probability of that event occurring was 3 out of 8. Okay, can't simplify it from there. That is my solution. Okay. You actually have quite a few now example or problems here to do on your own. Let's just take a look at each one. I want to make sure these ones are all good. I might cross a few off here. So your first one, 4, it says example 2, what is the probability of rolling at most 4 and flipping heads? So at most 4, so you're going to want things 4 and smaller. Okay, that one sounds good. And example 5, what is the probability of flipping at least 2 tails? We can do that one. Number 6, you roll 2 number cubes. What's the probability of rolling double 3s? Okay. Wow, that one's going to be a lot. In example 1, what's the probability of choosing a stuffed crust Hawaiian pizza? Okay, so I want you to answer all of those. Come on back once you've got your answers. You're going to maybe have to go back through the videos or look through your notes so that you can see the solutions to these ones that say you need to go back in example 2, 5, and 1. Right? Pause the video and you come back. We will go through your answers. Code word. This time I remembered. Your code word is Twizzlers, like the candy. One of my favorites. Pause the video. You can do it. I know you can. Do it. Do it. All right, coming on back. So, and for problem number 4, in part in example 2, when you could go back and look at your chart here, we want to know, I think it's heads, right? And flipping heads. Okay, so you want to know then how many outcomes could you have at most 4 and flipping heads. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 out of total of 12 outcomes. So I'd have 4 out of 12, which I can simplify down to 1/3. From number 5, in example 5, they want to know what's the probability of flipping at least 2 tails. So it could have 2 tails in it, or it could have 3 tails. When I counted those up, that it would include this one, this one, this one, and that one. So there's a 4 out of 8 possible outcomes. So I simplified it down to 1/2. Problem number 6, you roll 2 number cubes. If you think about the fundamental counting principle, there's 6 possible outcomes on each cube. So 6 times 6, that's my possibility, is 36. And then the probability of rolling double 3s, then you're only going to end up rolling 3 and 3 next to each other again, 1 chance. Okay, so you could write out all the numbers. Oh, I'm going to have 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 1 and 2 and 2. You could make a big chart like we did before, but it's only going to occur 1 out of 32. And if you go back to example 1 and talk about the probability of choosing a stuffed crust Hawaiian pizza, well, based on your possible outcomes, you get 12 possible outcomes. Only one of them is going to be a stuffed crust Hawaiian pizza, so you get 1 out of 12. All right. And then we are at the end of this lesson. So homework is then the 15.4 homework, okay? On Big Ideas Math, as we've always been doing lately. Make sure to get it done. I know you can do it. We've done it before. So this one is due on the 24th. Get it done that Sunday because that week of the 24th or the 25th, I'm finalizing grades. So you're not necessarily going to have 2 weeks to finish it. Get it done. Okay? Go do it right now. You can do it. Finish this up and do it. Just do it. All right? I'll catch you tomorrow with 15.5. Believe in you. See ya.